All right. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasam Chakudash. I want to give double honors to our elder apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and blessings, health and wellness to the house of David, the elect. Our names are High Spirit, we in Judah, and today I'm going to go into a live stream entitled, They Are Black Into the Ground. All right, they are black into the ground. All right. And, this is another lesson, which is basically consisting of the milk scriptures, the milk of the scriptures. All right, and it's another lesson dealing with the basics. And as I said before, when you say basics, the key word in basics is base. All right, and every temple, every house that you build has to have a strong base. All right, as it says in 1 Corinthians 3:16. Let me get that real quick. As a matter of fact, let me turn off my notifications right quick. All right, Salak about that. With Jeremiah 14:2 right quick. Jeremiah 14, morning, and the gates thereof lame. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone. All right. They, about the 12 tribes of Israel, black unto the ground. All right. This is a biblical description of the Israelites. All right. Specifically the tribe of Judah. All right. Which is the so-called Negro today. All right. And you will argue that you come from a Spanish word meaning, instead of, subscribing, all right, to being a Israelite, man. All right. You would rather have this class mentality and conforming yourself or consenting to a narrative and entity that you're captive of, you, man. All right. Where it tells you specifically that Judah is black into the ground, man. All right, I read that again, Jeremiah 14:2. Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof anguish. They are black into the ground, and the cry of them is gone up. All right, they are black now. All right. Joe, and all the 12 tribes originally, all right, were dark skinned. All right. Now, that's not to say that all the 12 tribes are Negroes or all this bullshit like that. But all the 12 tribes were pigmented, man. All right. When it came to the Northern Kingdom, the Spaniards took over. All right. A lot of amalgamation took place, a lot of mixing. All right. That's why I said Ephraim is a cake not turned. But that's why they have those. That's why you have certain tribes or certain people of the tribes. They look, or they could almost pass for Edomite, man. But they're Israelites, okay? But originally we were all darker in the ancient world, man. As a matter of fact, all the nations were darker in the ancient world. All right, with the exception of Esau, Edom. All right. Job 30:30 says, all right, Job 30:30, skin back upon, and my bones are burnt with heat. Now this picture Jake in a famine. Picture Jake in a desert, man. It's gonna be crisp. All right. As my skin back upon me, and my bones are burnt with heat. All right. Building block this point that we're building, all right, through the spirit of Yahweh Bashmal Shai, that Jake is a so-called black man. All right. The Israelites, according to the Bible, are the so-called black men. All right. And I say so-called because there's no such thing as identifying a nation by a color scheme, man. By a color. All right. Or naming him after two continents, which are named after the so-called white man. Like that's kind of it's kind of distasteful. It's distasteful to consent to another man's, all right, labeling system, man. Like, why would you consent to that in 2022, man? Okay. So that was Job 30:30. All right, let me get not Psalms, the Song of Solomon. All right, 5. 1 second. Song of Solomon 1:5. It says, I am calmly, daughters of, as the tent of Kedar, as the curtains. But it says, I am calmly. And that word black goes back to Kadar, all right? Dark skin. So the correct look, so the correct identification, all right, of the Israelites in the Bible were dark, dark like Elam, dark, they dark with them another nation. So-called Negroes, West Indians, Native Americans, Hispanics, so-called Latin Americans, they're all the Israelites according to the Bible, and they were all dark in the ancient world. Okay, let me, say with that being said, you have different variations of melanin within our people, or even back then. All right, but generally speaking, they were all melanated because correct pigment a human, specifically an Israelite, man. All right, this is a twilight zone. All right, where looking like your oppressor was more complimentary, man. It was more, for lack of better word, it was more desired to look like oppressor. It was more desired to look like you had leprosy, man. All right, but pretty much the point, man. All right, our nation consisted of dark skinned men, dark skinned women. Okay, let me get who's just more proof. Going back to that was done yesterday. Yahweh Shai is a so-called Negro. He's a so-called black man. Hebrews, what's it, 7:14? All right. For it is evident our Lord sprang out of Judah. His tribe expect nothing priesthood. Okay. For it is evident that our Lord sprang out of the tribe of Judah. All right. In Jeremiah 14:2, that what? All right. That a Judah is black unto the ground. So you mean to tell me a beetle, a damn so-called white man, came out of a clan or a tribe of so-called black men? No, man. All right, Yahweh Shai was a so-called Negro, man. Point blank, period. But furthermore, the Israelites are so-called Negroes. Now, this applied that scripture with our people, and then link that up with Deuteronomy the 28th chapter. So-called black people going across the world by way of slavery, right? I mean, by way of ships to slavery. Who else did that apply to, man? All right. Who else did that apply to? Okay. But our people are the biblical Israelites, and this is proof. All right. See if I could think of here's something else. All right. But that's pretty much the point. I was thinking about that in Numbers, but I can't remember. So 24:10. Nah, that's not the one. Not Numbers. It would have been, but that's okay. That's okay. Scripture leprosy. That's okay. All right. See snow. Here's more proof. Salak. And here's more. It is for and Yahweh talking to Moses, put now thy hand into thy bosom, and he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again, and he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. So if the Most High had Moses put his hands into his bosom, and he took his hand out, it was leprous as snow, which we all know. Now that's evident that leprosy means so-called white, or basically stripped of melanin. All right. But he had him put his hand back into his bosom, and he said it was turned again as his other flesh. So if his leprous flesh was so-called white or albino or a lack of melanin, what was his other flesh? It was dark skin, because that's the correct look for an Israelite man. All right. Esau even tell you in his science that blonde hair and blue eyes, that was a switch that happened 6,000 years ago, and they know where they came from. That was dealing with Cain in the garden, man. All right, but that's not natural. Natural goes back to nature. All right, that's not of nature to produce unmelanated people. We come from the earth. All right, we're offsprings of the earth. All right, the earth's soil is dark. The more fertile the soil, the darker. So if you came from the soil, all right, then you're gonna look like the soil. So that's natural. That's the complete man. All right. But that's pretty much the point.